Alrighty, now it's official. Ron DeSantis has filed to run for president. The 6 o'clock event with Elon Musk, the Twitter Spaces, has not commenced yet. I talked about just the concept of doing a presidential announcement on a Twitter Spaces with Elon Musk, and I guess the risks and opportunities there. Today, I want to focus a little more on DeSantis' actual chances and where they stand right now. His polling has stayed up. I mean, it's been pretty stable in the 20s, low 20s now. Never high, never competitive with Trump. I mean, it's very clear that Trump is far and away the favorite. But DeSantis' people, I guess, would argue that DeSantis is relatively unknown, and that this is still very, very early in the race. And those things are both true. Hey, early front runners don't always win. Old Jeb Bush was far and away the early front runner favorite for the Republican nomination in 2016, and we see how that worked out. Jeb didn't come anywhere close. He blew $100 million. It was more money in a primary than anyone had ever seen before. And he blew through all that money and was spent by South Carolina, the third state, and he had to drop out because he was not competitive. He was like in 9th place. Now, do I think that Trump is Jeb Bush? No. Trump is not at all comparable to Jeb Bush in 2016. Trump has complete 100% name ID. Everyone has made up their mind about Trump. Everyone, whether they love him or hate him, already has an opinion on Trump. You're not going to move anyone and change their opinions on him. So DeSantis can say all he likes that there is still plenty of people. He has plenty of room to grow. He can argue that what you're seeing in the polls now is just, the baseline of people who have heard of him. And that, yes, throughout the course of a campaign, he's going to have to work to earn more people's support. But unless you get Donald Trump under 50% in these early primary states, which I'm not seeing, I just haven't seen polls showing Trump getting under 50%. Now, could he? Sure. But, I mean, that would mean that you would have to shake off Trump supporters. And Trump supporters tend to be ride or die. They're a pretty hardcore base of people. And as I've said in the past, I think that just by running at all in 2024, DeSantis risks completely poisoning himself from ever running for political office again, because he will just be seen as yet another anti-Trumper. And so I don't think that this campaign is really built for the kind of nuance that DeSantis would have to rely on. The case he's going to have to make is that he's more Trump than Trump, and that everything that people like about Trump, he is that but better. And based on his record, he could make that argument. Especially now that Trump is walking back. Sorry, where was I? I got interrupted. DeSantis is going to have to make a nuanced pitch. I think that's where I was at. He's going to have to make the case that he is more Trump than Trump, and that a vote for DeSantis is not a vote against Trump. This is a very difficult line to walk when Trump is going to make it explicitly clear to his supporters that either you're with me or you're against me. You can't like me and then vote for DeSantis because you think DeSantis might be marginally better on certain issues. Oh, I remember where I was now when I had to cut away. Trump has walked back his most important accomplishment of his entire presidency, which was overturning Roe v. Wade. Now, Trump has pivoted to being the relatively less pro-life candidate. That's how he's trying to position himself. He's trying to position himself explicitly to the left of Ron DeSantis on abortion in a primary, which is a very strange decision. Instead, Trump is trying to argue that Ron DeSantis is too tough on abortion and that someone who's more moderate like him would make a better candidate. If he continues to do this on other issues, though, he, I think, could do a bit to help old Ronnie D. Just imagine, for example, if Trump came out about DeSantis's E-Verify bill and said, "Oh my gosh, this is way too cruel. You know, he's taking away people's livelihoods. You know, fathers are no longer able to support their children. They're having to flee Florida, move to California, and get jobs there. The tomatoes are rotting on the vine in the fields across the state of Florida. We're going to have to eat more tomatoes from Mexico because Ron DeSantis outlawed all the farm workers." I know this might sound crazy to some people, since Trump's bread and butter issue since he first became a candidate in 2016 was, you know, hey, I'm the guy who's tough on immigration. But if he sees in the media DeSantis taking heat for being too tough on immigration, I could just as easily see Trump pivot and become, like he is on abortion now, the moderate candidate running to the left of Ron DeSantis. And this, I think, would be a very bad idea for Mr. Trump. Would it be enough to, swing, like a 40-point difference between him and DeSantis in some of these polls? No, I don't think that he would swing it 40 points, but he'd make it quite a bit closer if he focused on these issues. Trying to paint DeSantis as an extreme right-winger in the primary is not a winning strategy for a primary. The other thing I'm seeing a lot with Trump surrogates is they are taking Disney's side in the DeSantis-Disney feud, which, I mean, I guess it makes sense based on Trump logic that, you know, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. But I don't think it's going to play well with voters to take the side of the multinational, or the global homo corporations. The whole DeSantis-Disney split was over Disney's support for, sex education in kindergarten classes. The so-called Don't Say Gay bill was just about saying that teachers can't talk about sex in K through third grade classes. It was about as inoffensive and mild, and frankly, I was shocked that it had to be passed at all. But it did need to be passed, and Disney strongly opposed it, and they tried to use their leverage as one of the state's largest employers and, a very powerful multinational corporation to try and crush that law. And now people like Carrie Lake are taking Disney's side, of course, all on Trump's behalf. And so it's only a matter of time, I would imagine, before Trump himself starts coming out about how much he likes Bob Iger and how he thinks the Don't Say Gay bill is the worst thing ever. I mean, we know Carrie Lake is not socially conservative. She never has been. She's, she's very strong on illegal immigration and election integrity. Those are her two big issues. But, I mean, as far as the groomer stuff goes, she is not someone who is worried about that sort of conduct in schools. But others, I would think most people in a Republican primary, they are concerned about that. That does bother them. I think even more socially liberal Republicans can look at at an issue and say, you know what, we probably should not be discussing sexual intercourse with kindergartners or anyone up to third grade. That just seems like a decent precaution. That's just a good rule of thumb. Let's not sexualize children that are that young. And by sexualize, I mean exposed to the concept of sex. Let's just let the kids have a few years of innocence, okay? Maybe we shouldn't take our kids to pride parades where they're going to be exposed to nudity. These are the sorts of laws that have been passed recently by the Florida legislature and signed by Ron DeSantis. This is the record that Donald Trump and his surrogates will be attacking. And I don't think that that's a good strategy. I never have thought it was a good strategy for Trump to go after Ron DeSantis. Ever since he first did it way back in October of 2022, before Trump was running for president, he started attacking DeSantis when DeSantis was still running for re-election as governor of Florida, which he won overwhelmingly. Trump back then was attacking DeSantis, which never made sense to me. Trump, you're by far the favorite. You don't have to pay attention to DeSantis. You should ignore him. You should belittle him. You shouldn't try and debate him on substantive issues and say, well, I really disagree with him on policy issues, because the policies that have been embraced by the DeSantis administration, he was able to get those through in Florida, which was always a swing state for going back into the mists of history. This was a 50-50 evenly divided state, and he made very right-wing policies, what are now considered very right-wing, would have been totally normal 5 years ago, would have been basic human decency 10 years ago. He made all of that. He ran on that, and he won almost 60% of the vote. So these policies, I think, are quite popular. I don't think people were voting for DeSantis because of his personality. That's just, I don't think he's a particularly electric personality. He doesn't have that going for him. That's not who he is. He has clearly been getting coached on how to talk more like Trump and to gesticulate, and he's also become more orange in the past couple of years. But Ron DeSantis will never be Donald Trump in that respect. So to the extent that people do like him, it's because of what he's done, not who he is. Now, there are still a very, very small number of, never Trump extremists, like maybe 1% of the Republican Party, 1% of the Republican primary electorate. Sure, those people are going to support DeSantis because he's not Trump. But they're not a meaningful voting bloc. DeSantis would not be at 20% even if all he had were people who just hate Trump and are out to get Trump. The hate Trump wing of the Republican Party is not relevant. They haven't been relevant since 2016. Trump put them away, and he threw them into the dustbin of history, from which they shall never crawl out. So, I think the way that Trump is going to take down DeSantis, which I still would lean towards him being able to do that, he is starting with a huge advantage, and I don't think he's going to blow that advantage. I think that Trump will figure out the right message that he has to hammer home, because that's what he does. He throws scattershot. He throws all these different things out there, and he sees what sticks. That's why you got stuff like him accusing Ted Cruz, or Ted Cruz's dad, of assassinating John F. Kennedy. He was taking spaghetti and throwing it at the wall to see what stuck. And what it ended up sticking was Lying Ted. This idea that Ted Cruz, he swears on a Bible to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and then as soon as he lifts his hand up off the Bible, he starts lying, because he's a politician, and that's what politicians do. And so Trump was able to paint Ted Cruz as just another slimy politician. That was Ted Cruz's undoing. Trump did not beat Ted Cruz by debating him on the merits of their personal political positions. And so what Trump has to do is he has to find the right insult for DeSantis. He's been running with DeSanctimonious for months now, and immediately when he came out with it, I said, and I think that was also October 2022, I said Ron DeSanctimonious is a dumb nickname. I mean, most people, your average voter, I got to tell you, they don't know what sanctimonious means. I know that Donald Trump knows what sanctimonious means, but the average person doesn't. And it also is just, it's not pithy. It doesn't sound very clever. I mean, Ron DeSanctimonious, that sounds like that could be some kind of Latin name. His name may as well be Ron DeSantarelli. So Trump needs to make fun of DeSantis. He needs to make him look like a small man. He needs to stop taking him seriously, okay? You know what was great was he completely neutered Tim Scott's campaign when he announced that he was running, which I didn't even talk about on this channel because Tim Scott is a non-entity. I guess he wants to be vice president. That's probably what he's doing because, Lindsey Graham, his best friend, butt buddy from South Carolina, he's a big, Lindsey Graham, he endorsed Trump on day one. And, Tim Scott and Lindsey Graham, it's not like their politics are diametrically opposed. They're pretty much the same person. Tim Scott, I guess it's hard to say anyone's as bad as Lindsey Graham, so Tim Scott maybe not as bad as Lindsey Graham. But they're pretty darn close. And so but anyway, leaving that aside, assuming that Tim Scott actually was a serious candidate, Trump came out and made him look like a fool by praising him and saying, and welcoming him to the race, and talking about how great Tim Scott is compared to that rat Ron DeSanctimonious. What does that tell you? It tells you that he sees Tim Scott as no threat and that he instead wants to focus all of his fire on DeSantis. It's not hitting home. He has not found his stride yet. But once he does, I don't think that DeSantis will have a chance. So, with all that said, I will see you folks back here tomorrow.